I'm sweating already. Literally, I'm staring at my YouTube studio right now as we speak. But I decided to sit on my couch instead and be comfortable, even though I'm sweating because I have a ring light. But the ring light still makes me doesn't make me look good, and I don't even know what the hell this shit is in the background. If you're watching on the video, I apologize, but here I am. This is episode 11. I can't even believe that I'm keeping track of the episodes, but I wanted to hold on a second. I don't know why. Okay, here. Yeah. I wanted to if you follow me on Instagram, then you see that today I posted about my weight loss journey. I'm literally looking at it right now. I'll read it because then I want to go into kind of that. I know I've done an episode on self-love, but this I think goes more into specifics about that journey and where I was personally. I feel like it goes into my personal journey. I'm not even showered. Like, I look like who did it and ran right now. Yeah. Woo! My ring light almost fell on me, so there's that. Great. Anyway, so if you're watching me on the video on the video podcast version of this podcast, I can't even speak. If you're watching me on YouTube, I apologize for my appearance. But I'm gonna read my little blurb, what I wrote as the caption for the picture. And maybe I'll even take this picture and put it on the video so you can see if you haven't seen it, or just follow me on Instagram and look at my post from August 14th, Friday. All right, so I wrote, I was unhealthy, unhappy, and unwilling to make any changes because I was fearful of failure. Me losing weight goes deeper than just going on a diet. Me making the change represented the first step in finally taking care of me. I'd convinced myself that I could never do it. I got to that weight because I genuinely hated myself and figured, might as well stay unhealthy. I want to die anyway. When you're depressed and feel down on your luck, it's hard to do anything good for yourself. One day after releasing my first music video and seeing what I looked like on camera, seeing how far I'd let myself go, I literally told myself I was going to make the change for me. And from that day forward, I implemented small changes into my daily routine that would soon, over the course of a few years, become lifestyle changes. I developed healthier habits. While I still feel I have some more to go, for myself, I can look back at this picture and see the tangible change. Looking back helps me to remember that I'm nowhere near the person I used to be physically and mentally/emotionally. I hope if you're reading this, you realize your worth and understand that you too can accomplish any change you want to accomplish in life. The mind is our most powerful tool. That was my Instagram post. And as of right now, 10:22 a.m. on Friday morning, I posted this less than an hour ago, and 2,041 people have liked it, and 172 people have commented. So that tells me that this is a topic that people are interested in. And that tells me that a lot of people can relate to it and may struggle with the same type of issues. So I figured I want to be consistent with this podcast. I want to continue to post. If people resonate with that message, then I might as well make an episode about it. So here I am. At my heaviest, let's start there. I've always struggled with weight my entire life. I'm going to do an episode on bullying because in middle school I was severely bullied by a group of people. And most of that bullying was due to my weight in middle school. So it wasn't me being that heavy as I wasn't out of character for me. I've always struggled. I've always had a weight struggle. You know, when my sister and I would fight as kids, one of the main things that she would go for was the only thing that she would go for was my weight. You know, it was, oh, you're a fat fuck. That would be the insult. And she knew the minute she said that, something clicked in me and I would literally go crazy. Partially because she knew I was bullied, but she also knew it was a soft spot for me. You know what I mean? And I could go into so much. This, you know, I got to get my hair cut at 12, so I have to leave here in an hour. I wish I had longer than an hour, but honestly, I could probably cover a lot in an hour. I could go into how TikTok has, you know, starting a TikTok and being on a platform of, you know, being a lesbian on this platform with a bunch of other lesbians who are fit and who are really good looking and have really good bodies. You know what I mean? That to me, when I first started, was a trigger. And I could even say, you know, Rhea is one of my good friends now, and I love the girl to death. When her and I first started getting closer as friends, I was very insecure being her friend, because it was like, people are going to put me like on this platform. People are going to put me and her against one another. And there's no way that I can compete physically with this goddess of a human being who's got this 6-pack that I've never had in my entire life. But my weight struggle has, it's always been a struggle from the time that I was a kid, from the time that I was an adolescent. And you know, your hormones start making you this awkward human being. And, that was when it kind of began for me, you know, and it's fluctuated up and down, mainly up. You know, it's never really gone down. When I was like 13, I went on a diet, and started working out, and I actually became really like athletic and fit. But like any 13, 14-year-old, you kind of you start to drink and you start to develop other habits and live your life. You're not a responsible human being at that age. You're exploring certain things. So of course it didn't stick. And so it went back up. My weight would go back up, and I find that there's a correlation, with me at least, between my depression and my weight. And it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg for me? And I think if I'm being completely honest, I'd have to say that they both tie into one another. You know, the more depressed you get, the more I was always a stress eater. Now that I've developed, now that I am where I'm at, I am where I am right now with my body type and my eating habits. When I'm stressed, I can't eat. It's kind of flipped. But all my life, I was a stress eater. So I would get stressed out or depressed, and I would eat my feelings. And then I'd gain weight and see that I was gaining weight, and I'd become more depressed. So it was kind of this vicious cycle. And I remember it was about 3 years ago. And again, you guys know my story. You know where I've been. I don't have to continue to reiterate it. But it was about 3 years ago now. In May, end of May, 3 years ago, or a little over 3 years ago now, I released my first music video. My first and only music video, actually. For an album that I was releasing. For those of you who don't know, I sing and write songs. It's kind of taken a back seat, but it'll always be a part of me. And I released this music video, and I looked at myself and I was like, I cannot look like that. There's no way that I could be in the public eye or want to pursue this dream of mine of being in the public eye and look like that and feel so uncomfortable and not be comfortable in myself. So from that day forward, and you could ask anybody that knows me, especially my mother, when I have something in my head that I want to accomplish, when I put it in my brain, that's it. There's no going back. If I want something and I want to achieve something, I'm not, and it's like, that fire within me, I'm not going back on it. I'm going to do it, or I'm going to fucking die doing it. I'm very headstrong that way. I've always been that way. So I literally put it in my brain, like, I have to not look like that anymore. There's no way that I can continue down this path, because I'm going to only get worse from here. And at that point, I was unable to leave the house, basically because I would leave the house and get really bad anxiety and panic attacks. I remember I would eat because I was eating all of this greasy, disgusting food, and I would feel like my heart racing, like from the salt and the greasiness. My menstrual cycle wasn't, I had PCOS. My menstrual cycle wasn't regular. If I got my period once every 2 months, that was like regular for me. So I was just, not only was I mentally unhealthy because I was depressed and anxious, but I was also physically, obviously, unhealthy. I was 40 pounds heavier than I am now, and I'm still no stick. You know what I mean? I'm no stick figure. I still have maybe like 15, 20 pounds to go, so for my height at least. And I've always been a stocky person. Even at my skinniest, I'm still like stocky, which is fine. I understand my body type. But at that point, 40 pounds ago, I wasn't healthy by any stretch of the imagination. I felt uncomfortable in my clothes. There's no way that I would ever be on camera at 40 pounds heavier wearing a tank top. You know what I mean? And still to this day, I have body dysmorphia, and body image issues that severely affect certain romantic relationships. Like, I'm gonna be complete, like, this is like just being emotionally naked. I can't be physically naked in front of somebody unless I know for sure that they're not gonna leave me, because I look at myself in the mirror still to this day, and I see that person in middle school who was bullied for being fat, and I see the person that I was 40 pounds ago still when I look in the mirror. You know what I mean? And there are days, and don't get me wrong, there are fucking days that I look at myself and I'm like, God, I'd fuck myself. You know what I mean? Like, there are days that I am feeling myself and I'm like, damn. But I've gotten to the point now, my weight journey has gone so deep. It's not at an I'm not like unhealthily obsessed with my weight, but I could see myself getting there, to be quite honest, if I'm being completely honest. Right now I think I'm in a good place where I know that I need to monitor certain things. I know carbs are really bad for me, especially somebody with PCOS. I know sugar intake is very bad for me. So I pay attention to that. People make fun of me. Like, Brittany's always like, oh my God, you're constantly checking the nutritional facts. And I'm like, yeah, because I want to see what I'm putting into my body. So I'm very aware of what I put into my body. It's not an obsession. It's not an unhealthy obsession. I could see it getting there if, let's say, I became depressed or something like that. Or something traumatic happened in my life. Yeah, I could see it getting to that unhealthy point. But right now I'm at a very healthy place when it comes to my weight, my relationship with my weight, I mean, if that makes any sense. But my relationship with my body is still very much so something that I need to work on. My first episode on this podcast, on video, talking about the episode I did talking about my toxic relationship, I was fixated, and I'm sure nobody notices this, but me looking at myself, and I'm probably going to watch this video back and look at my arms and be like, oh my God, what are you doing? Why are you wearing a tank top. I was fixated watching that episode back on my arms. I was so insecure about my arm fat, and like that was the only thing that I could see when I watched that video back. And I know other people don't look at me and see that as grotesque, but my body image of myself at this point, and I'm working on it, you know, therapy helps, but my body image at this point and my entire life has been one of only negative self-talk, you know. And because of the bullying, and because of you know, even when I would be bullied by my sister, you know what I mean, it caused me to develop body dysmorphia, where literally now I can't even if I have a partner, like, you know, if I'm with somebody that I'm intimate with, it even makes me uncomfortable having a wife beater on. I wear wife beaters under my shirts, you know what I mean? It makes me uncomfortable. I'm even leery and afraid to wear a wife beater in front of that person, because I'm afraid that they're gonna see what's underneath here, and they're gonna be like, sorry, can't do it, gotta go, bye. You know, like that's my ultimate fear. And I know it's irrational, and that's what fear is. It's fucking irrational. But it goes deeper than just a simple, oh, I'm afraid of spiders. You know what I mean? It's for me, my body image issues and my relationship with my weight, it runs deep. You know, when my parents were getting divorced, and I was depressed because I was being abused by some woman, and my father wasn't protecting us, and things like that, and certain things were happening in my childhood life, I would lock myself in my room and eat, you know, write and eat. That's what I did, you know. So it runs deep. The weight issues run deep for sure, especially growing up in an Italian family. A lot of the times we Italians, we give kids food to shut them up, you know what I mean? And a lot of times the food is carbohydrates. But anyway, when I was like 21, 22, that was when I realized that I went to the gynecologist for the first time. I mean, me being a lesbian, my mother was like, you don't really need to go to the gynecologist if you're not being penetrated. Like, you know, I keep asking we have a family gynecologist. I keep asking him, and he's saying, like, you know, you don't really have to, but unless there's an issue. So at 21, 22, I was heavy. You know, I think at that point, almost my heaviest, at like 170, 180 pounds, 5 foot flat. You know what I mean? I was a Oompa Loompa, you know? And at that point, I wasn't getting my period. It had been 3 months that I'd gotten my period. So I went to the doctor, and he told me I had PCOS, and I was diagnosed. And I think that played a part also in my weight gain. You know, obviously when your hormones aren't where they're supposed to be, that plays a part in it. But again, it's this, you don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, which one came first. Like, was it the depression that came first, and the anxiety, and then me eating my feelings caused me to have a hormonal imbalance? Or was it, I've always had a hormonal imbalance from a child, from the age of childhood, and then it just kind of developed and caused the depression and anxiety and weight gain? I have no idea. Maybe down the road I'll explore that. I personally feel as though it was my eating habits that threw off my hormonal balance, because once I decided to make the lifestyle change, and to get into specifics, all I really did, people ask me, they're like, what did you do? What's your secret? There's no secret. If I could give advice to any single person out there struggling with weight, who's finding it hard to stick to something, the one thing I would say is don't do everything all at once. Don't get rid of everything all at once. Do small changes. Make small changes. You know, if you're used to eating Italian bread with your pasta every Sunday, okay, instead of regular pasta, replace that with whole wheat pasta, or replace it with vegetable pasta and don't have as much, and make it a conscious effort to not have that bread with the pasta. You know what I mean? Like little things like that. When you get hungry at night, instead of snacking on processed foods, make sure that every time you're snacking in the middle of the night, it's a fruit or a whole food or a vegetable, because that's not as fattening. You know what I mean? Just little things like that. I lost 40 pounds over 2 years. It wasn't like, it wasn't this diet plan that I put myself on. I just kind of experimented, and I was like, okay, you know, I slowly got rid of certain things, and I slowly added healthier things, but over time, gradually. And, you know, that's now I've now incorporated, I used to be really strict, you know what I mean? I stopped drinking for a really long time, and, you know, I used to be a beer drinker. Now I don't drink beer anymore. Instead of having beer, I'll drink a White Claw. Or instead of that, I'll drink a vodka and seltzer. Instead of having, let's say, a fucking vodka and cranberry even, because that's a lot of sugar. Vodka and seltzer is a better alternative. Just little things like that over time helped me to lose, you know, 40 pounds. So now even I'll find myself, let's say, like, I've never been upset. At first I was obsessed with the scale, but now I'm not really. I go by how I feel. And this summer, quarantine, I actually lost weight, but this summer, going back out into the public and stuff like that, yeah, okay, maybe I've gained a pound or two. And it's hard for me, as somebody who struggles with body image issues and who gets really, really down on myself for like my weight. When I gain a pound or two, I literally hate my entire life. And I'm trying to, instead of hating myself or feeling like shit when I gain a pound or two, just talk to myself and say to myself, listen, it's 1 or 2 pounds. You haven't gained it all back. You can easily make the right changes or you know, take away certain things for a week or two and healthily get rid of that 1 or 2 pounds and continue. You know what I mean? It's all about your choices. It's all about your mind and what and how you feel, you know? So I would also say to somebody struggling, when you fall off the bandwagon, when you find that you've gained a pound or two back, or whatever, 5 pounds even, instead of getting pissed off at yourself and calling yourself a piece of shit, or, you know, calling yourself a fat whatever it is, that the negative self-talk, instead of doing that, just remind yourself that it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, it's a journey in your life. It's your life. And you cannot be expected to be perfect all the time. You know, there's always going to be an event. There's always going to be a wedding where you're going to be drinking. There's always going to be a party where they're going to have cake. You know what I mean? There's always going to be some sort of thing happening in life. You can't expect yourself not to indulge every once in a while. Again, people who know me watch this and they're like, okay, but you never indulge. To me, I do though. For myself, yeah, I do indulge. And you know, I don't restrict things. Last night I was at my sister's house and we had Chinese food. I ordered brown rice with steamed vegetables but I did also have spare ribs. You know, for me, the spare ribs were my treat. That was me treating myself. While everybody else was eating the regular Chinese food, the fried rice and the lo mein and the wontons and all the good stuff, you know what I mean? I made the choice to indulge for myself in spare ribs. And to be quite honest, eating them made me feel really guilty, because to me that was my way of indulging. I shouldn't feel guilty because realistically it's spare ribs, you know what I mean? But yeah, I do indulge. I've ordered cookies from my cookie dealer and eaten half a cookie, you know what I mean? I don't overindulge. That's the key. People think that I'm crazy or obsessive because I don't overindulge. If I buy cookies from a place, like a big half-pound cookie, then I'll have half of that. And people are like, well, you didn't eat all of it. Yeah, because this is me indulging. I'm not going to overindulge. I'm never going to do that again, because I know myself. I know that food for me was a comfort. And when you have that coping mechanism, it can become like a drug. And that's why the struggle with weight is so hard for people, because when you have a coping mechanism, you become addicted to that coping mechanism. That anytime you feel like shit, that's your security blanket. And that's what food was for me. Thankfully, I mean, honestly, not thankfully, because there are studies that show that food addictions can be worse than drug addictions, or just as bad. You know, a food addiction can be just as bad as a heroin addiction. You know what I mean? So again, if you're in that place, like me, where you used food as a crutch, or you're still using food as a crutch, and it's almost an addiction, or it is an addiction and it's hard, don't get mad at yourself, because you're not crazy and you're not just this fatty McFat. You're addicted to a coping mechanism that you've probably been using since childhood. That's been embedded in your way of dealing with shit. You know what I mean? And realize that it is just as hard to wean yourself off of certain foods, especially sugar and carbs. Seriously. The addiction to sugar and carbs, especially in this country, in the US, it's astronomical. Like, there's no other way to put it. You know what I mean? So don't get pissed off. Don't be hard on yourself for being in a certain place, or for not being able to completely have the willpower to give up an opportunity to eat cake. It's an addiction. It really is, you know? And it's one that you have to constantly in your mind work at, and constantly make the right choices. So for me, when I indulge or whatever, I make sure that I don't overindulge, because I know how easy it is to tip into, using those foods as coping mechanisms. As somebody who, it's like any addict, you know what I mean? Realistically, any addict should completely do away with their drug of choice. Unfortunately, when you're a food addict, or you have food addiction tendencies, you can't completely do away with food, because you'll die. We need food to live. You know what I mean? So it is harder, because I'm not going to sit here and say that a food addiction is harder than a heroin addiction. I've never been a heroin addict, so I couldn't say. I don't know any heroin addicts personally, so I couldn't say. I would love to talk to somebody who had some sort of drug addiction. You know what I mean? But regardless, what I'm trying to say is it is a new dynamic of hard, a new level of difficult, because when you are addicted to the act of eating for making yourself feel better about anything, you can't fully get rid of food. You have to just implement better ways of eating. Whereas a heroin addict has to just completely get rid of heroin. It's not like they can, I mean, you can technically wean yourself off, but it's not like they can implement better ways of doing heroin in order to get off of heroin, if that makes sense. So it's a different dynamic, but it's addicting nonetheless. So for me, people make fun of me, but I know my relationship with food. I know what will happen if I overindulge. I know that it all it takes is one night of me being a complete barbarian with my food to get me to that point of I don't give a fuck anymore. And you know what I mean? That's the relationship with food. My relationship now with food is a lot better. I don't eat food to cope with situations. Therapy helps. Again, I might make fucking t-shirts that just say therapy helps, because it really does help. It helps you to develop healthier coping mechanisms. Journaling, talking to your friends, talking to your support system, journaling, writing down your feelings, writing down how you feel. Even if you don't know how you feel, just fucking letting your hand or your thumbs take the wheel, and you'll eventually figure out how you feel. You know what I mean? So therapy has helped me develop different coping mechanisms, but therapy was not by any means how I lost the weight or how I had the strength to lose the weight. It's a mind game. Weight loss is a complete mind game. And like any addiction or any situation, you have to want it in your mind first in order to make it happen. If you don't want it, if you don't tell yourself that you want it, it's not going to happen. You know, if you're kind of on the fence about it, or you're still having negative thoughts about it, or whatever the case may be, if you're still filled with fear about it, you're not going to take the next step or the steps needed to lose the weight. So for me, my breaking point, my tipping point was watching myself on a screen and seeing from the outside what other people were seeing, and seeing how big I had let myself get. And how when I was being filmed, I was so uncomfortable. I used to wear vests to cover up like my stomach area, because I felt not only did I feel uncomfortable naked with my partner, but I felt uncomfortable wearing clothes, layers of clothes. I felt so fucking, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. There was not one millisecond that I didn't want to crawl out of my skin. And I don't know if anybody out there has ever felt that feeling of wanting to crawl out of your own skin, because you feel so uncomfortable and so in your body. Like I've spoken about having panic attacks and feeling out of body and how crazy that is. But when you're in your body, it's a different feeling, because you're feeling trapped. You feel trapped in this meat bag of disgusting fatness. You know, that's just how I felt about myself. You know what I mean? Wanting to crawl out of my skin. And there are still moments, there are still days that, especially if I like feel as though I overeat, or you know, I feel fat, there are days that sitting, and maybe people know, because I kind of like cower into myself, you know, my posture's horrible anyway, but like when my posture is extra horrible, you know, it's one of those days that like I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be fucking seen. And it's so weird, because I'm on social media, and even at my heaviest, I was on social media. You know, you can go back to my old YouTube channel and see what I look like 40 pounds heavier, sitting in the corner over there doing a fucking mukbang, eating all this Filipino fried food as if I wasn't going to gain 700 pounds doing it. You know what I mean? You can see it. I wasn't, one of the themes of this podcast, I was not self-aware enough to even realize how big I had gotten, and people look back. I mean, I show people who know me now and have only known me at this weight, and I show them pictures, and they're like, holy shit, I can't even picture you like that. And it's like, yeah, now I can't. I don't know who that person is, and I know for me, I'll never get to that point ever again. I may gain a pound or two here or there, but I've changed my mind. I changed my mind, and because I changed my mind state, my weight changed. It wasn't I changed my weight, but my mind was still the same. When you change your weight, but your mind is still the same, it's not a lasting change. Yeah, you might lose weight for even a year or two, but you'll gain it back eventually because you haven't created the healthy choices that you need to sustain the weight loss, if that makes sense. For me, every other time that I had lost weight prior to this time, where I'm at right now, it always got to a certain place, and then I would be like, okay, here I am. I've lost a sufficient amount. Now I can start implementing other foods that I love, other foods that make me feel good, like the fried foods and the carbs and the sugars and stuff like that. Now I can incorporate that. And then I would incorporate it a little bit at first. And then slowly but surely, it would become all I ate again. And then I'd gain it all fucking back. Now, I know in my head, those foods don't make me feel good. They only make me feel good temporarily. Or they only made me feel good temporarily. Right? The carbs, the sugar, the fried foods would only make me feel good while I was eating them. Literally immediately after eating those foods, I would feel like garbage, like shit. Fast food as well. I haven't had fast food in fucking 2 years, 3 years. The soda, like just little things like that. You know what I mean? Getting rid of little things, right? If you're a sugar drink, like if you're into sugar drinks, you drink the Snapples, you drink the basically any fucking drink out there, even orange juice. There's a reason why when somebody's hypoglycemic, you give them orange juice, because you get a sugar high. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of sugar in even drinks that we see as healthy. You got to check the sugar content, seriously, because it's crazy when you look at the amount of sugar that's in like drinks. So if you're out there and you're like, how do I lose weight? Like, how do I do this? Start just by doing that. Start just by getting rid of the sugary drinks. Only drinking water. Make it a point to only drink water. If you change nothing else, I could guarantee, even if you only make that change and you continue to eat burgers with the bread on it, or you continue to eat the way that you eat, right? If you just get rid of the sugary drinks and only drink water, I could guarantee you even then you'd lose weight just by that. You know what I mean? That's just a little specific tip for anybody out there. Whatever. What the fuck was I saying? I don't even know what the fuck I was saying. I went off on a tangent. But the what I'm trying to say is this weight loss, where I'm at right now, has stuck and will stick. This is the skinniest that I've been in fucking years, and probably the healthiest. Like I said, I went to the gynecologist after being told that I needed to be on metformin, which is a diabetic medication, and being told that I needed to be on all this medication in order to regulate my period because of PCOS. Literally, I took myself off of the medication, and I was like, this is making me feel like shit. The metformin, I don't know if you know anything about the medication, but metformin fucks with your stomach. It gives you diarrhea, makes you nauseous. So yeah, while I was regulated and my hormones were being regulated, I was feeling like shit every single day. Not only that, but it was making me hypoglycemic. I was having hypoglycemia episodes because it was dropping my sugar too far, because my PCOS wasn't that severe that my sugar levels were crazy, if that makes sense. So I stopped taking the medication, and I was like, fuck this. You know what I mean? I'm going to try something else. I'm going to just try being healthier. I'm going to try eating more whole foods. I'm going to try cutting out red meat for a little bit, seeing what happens, and going from there. And that first gynecological, 2 years later, after losing the weight, I went to the gyno, and she was like, yeah, you don't have PCOS anymore. I was like, what? She's like, honestly, this is one of those diseases that diet and exercise. I didn't even exercise. Not once did I mean, okay, maybe here and there I would exercise, but it wasn't a religious thing. Exercise had nothing to do with my weight loss. It was just my food choices. If I did decide to exercise, like right now, if I decided I wanted to run on the treadmill, I'd be in a great spot, and I should start doing that. But, I rode my bike here and there. That was like the cardio that I had done, but it wasn't religious. Anyway, my gyno looked at me and she was like, yeah, diet and exercise for this type of disease, 100% helps. She's like, you don't have PCOS anymore. You have no more cysts on your ovaries because you made the lifestyle change that you made. And I'm going back to the gyno next week, and I could guarantee you still, like, she would say that I'm in good health because I made the right choices and did the right thing. So yeah. I mean, I could go on for fucking days about, how my choices have affected my lifestyle choices, and my eating habits have affected my health. I'm trying to think though. It's been a journey for sure. And it sounds so cliche when people say like, oh, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change, but it's the truth. You can't look at it as a diet. You can't look at it because diets to me are temporary. Lifestyle changes, implementing just changes here and there in your daily routine, slowly but surely will create healthier habits. And I've created healthier habits. There's no way my body, when I eat excessive sugar, like, when I do indulge, I bought 10 cookies, 10 half-pound cookies each. Like, each cookie's a half a pound, from this place in New York. Is called My Cookie Dealer. And they have different flavors of cookies, like fucking rainbow cookie, chocolate chip cookie. Like, it's just, the flavors are ridiculous. They have like strawberry Pop-Tart cookies and Dunkatetti cookies and Funfetti cookies and just, oh my god, and each cookie's a half a fucking pound, and they're amazing. The cookies are just, even the oatmeal cookies are amazing. Like, they're just incredible cookies. So I ordered 10 of these cookies, and I had a half of a cookie. Well, I think it was like not a Twix cookie, whatever the fucking kind of cookie it was. It was just, my body was being overloaded with sugar. I swear to God, not to be like too detailed, I had a half of a cookie and my body couldn't handle the sugar that was going into it. I literally immediately got nauseous and immediately got fucking diarrhea and like shit my brains out, because now my body is so used to healthy sugars, natural sugars. My body is so used to me giving it like nutritious foods and healthy foods, that whenever I fall off the bandwagon, my body feels it. Like, it's almost as if my body's like trying to detox itself from what I've put in it, And I mean, to me, it's like cool to see that, because it's like I know I'm doing something right. I know I'm doing something good most of the time when I eat. You know, my main focus not only was losing weight, it was being healthy. And that sounds so cliche too, but it's the truth. My main focus was sustaining a healthier lifestyle for myself so that I could get off of the medications that I was on, and I could have a normal, timely period without needing to rely on medication. And now I don't have to rely on medication. My period comes like clockwork every single month. And that has never happened for me since I'm 21 years old. The only way it would happen, the only way I would have a regular period, was if I was on medication. The minute I came off medication, if I continued to eat the crap that I ate, carbs and sugar and processed foods and stuff like that, my menstrual cycle just wouldn't fucking happen for months. Now that I'm healthier, and I'm not even as healthy as I could fucking be, you know what I mean? I still eat processed foods. I'm not like a crazed, you know, like I only eat whole foods. That's it. I only put whole foods into my body and like raw vegan. Like I'm not nowhere near that. I eat meat. I eat red meat. I eat processed foods. I'll have a rice cake here and there. I'll have sugar here and there. You know, like very rarely, but I will. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm this crazed, obsessive person when it comes to my health and my weight. But I've just made the right choices and continue to make the right choices that my body literally fucking thanks me by having regular periods. You know what I mean? Like, I just, health-wise, I feel better. My issue will always be and has always been body image. And that's a mental thing. That has nothing to do with what my body looks like. I mean, is my body perfect? Absolutely not. My body is not perfect. But my body image issues, I could literally lose 20 pounds, have a six-pack, and chiseled arms, and I would probably still have body image issues, because that's just that's my mental. I'm used to feeling that way because of what I went through, like being a kid, you know what I mean, and the bullying and my family fucked me up too, man. My dad's side of the family, again, it's always my dad's side of the family. Fuck them. Anyway, my dad's side of the family fucked me up. My grandmother would look at me and be like, you're gaining weight. You gain, like at 13, you know what I mean? At 13, 14 years old, like, you know, I remember, and I'll never forget this. And I remember this because it was traumatizing, because it hurt my feelings. The same aunt, if you've been following, the same aunt that verbally attacked me on Facebook for having different beliefs than her and being smarter than her, and being able to actually articulate an intelligible argument, that same aunt that got pissed at me for that and decided to personally attack me on Facebook. Also, I remember being like 13 years old, standing at my father's house, and she was there. And I remember like the heel of my foot was hurting for whatever reason. And I don't even know why. Maybe I'd been standing on it all day. I don't know. I was 13. Or 12, and I looked and I said it out, like just out loud. I remember I was like, oh, my foot hurts, and my aunt looked at me and was like, that's because you have all that weight on your feet. And I'll never forget it, because I was constantly reminded as a kid, not only by my peers at school who did it in a malicious, disgusting way, and like physically abused me as well. Not only was I reminded by them, by my peers, but I was reminded by my sister. Anytime she got pissed off at me, I was a fat fuck. I was reminded by my family, like I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't escape it. I was constantly, it was drilled into my head that I was fat. My dad would even like And he didn't do it in a malicious way. My aunt is just that type of person. I don't know if she's just a miserable human being and just wants everybody to feel as miserable as she feels or felt or whatever, and constantly has to put people down and remind people about themselves. I think that's her issue, not me. But she was always like that. My dad never was malicious about it, but he was like, like he would be sitting in a chair, and again in front of my entire family, I'd walk by and he'd be like, look at her, she's so solid. And as a kid growing up, you don't want even me being a masculine presenting female, like I don't want to be looked at as like solid, you know what I mean? Like I want to be skinny, you know? So yeah, I couldn't escape it. I was constantly reminded. My mother's the type of person, you know, where in my adult years, but even in my younger years, if I would gain weight and I would be putting on pants in front of her, she'd be like, oh, see, those pants don't fit you because, like, you know, you've gained so much weight. Like, it was constantly being reminded, but not in a constructive criticism way where somebody was like, you know, like it's all about your approach to it. You know what I mean? If you feel as though somebody's letting go of themselves and you care about that person and their well-being and you're coming from a good place and you bring it in a way that is digestible, again, going back to communication, then it's okay. But if you're but that never happened for me as a kid growing up. I was constantly reminded in a mean way of how fat I was. And so that sticks to your adult years, so that now I don't need outside people. Even now, I mean, my mother looks at me now and she's like, oh my God, you look great. Like, you look awesome, Tori. And I've never heard that from her because I always did have my weight issues. You know what I mean? I always did have my issues with weight. So now when I hear it from her, I know it's true because she wouldn't say it if she didn't mean it. I know my mother. But even when she says it, and she'll look at me, I'll put on a pair of pants and like a shirt, and she'll be like, oh my God, you look like a chocolate chip cookie. Like, oh my God, you look great. You look skinny. You look like you're losing weight. Like, she'll say it. It means, not that it means nothing. It means something, but it doesn't hit as much as the negative self-talk in my head, because I grew up constantly hearing how fat I was in every area of life. I grew up constantly being reminded of it, that now that I'm an adult and people don't remind me of it, I don't need them to, because I have that voice in my head that constantly reminds me of it, if that makes sense. So again, this goes out to all you parents or aunts and uncles out there watching this or listening to this. Don't fucking do that. Don't do that to kids. Don't. You may feel as though you're helping. I don't know how anybody could feel as though they're helping by acting like that. But yeah, I don't know how we grew up, you know what I mean? Or what voice in their head told them that was a good idea. It's not a good idea. Don't fucking do that to kids. It's traumatizing. I can tell you as a 31-year-old adult who had that happen to them as a kid, it's very traumatizing. I have body image issues because of it. And it absolutely affects my relationships, because it goes so deep that it's not just an uncomfortable. It's not like, oh, I'm just uncomfortable being naked and whatever, but I'm going to do it anyway because like, I'm just slightly uncomfortable. No, for me, it's not a slight uncomfortability. It's literally humiliating to me. You know what I mean? Like, to be naked in front of a partner is humiliating, because it's almost, it feels as though mentally, it feels as though it's like my insecurities are just completely being exposed with no filter and no anything. And it's very, like, I have to know for sure that somebody is there for me and is not going to leave me and is not going to judge me before I could even like feel comfortable having a wife beater on. Me, like I said, me wearing this tank top, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching the video, me having the tank top on that I'm wearing right now on camera is a huge step in and of itself for me. And I'm still not 100% comfortable wearing it. You know what I mean? Like, I still feel exposed and naked wearing a tank top on camera. So it goes deep. It goes really deep for me. But the changes that I've made in my life have definitely helped and are helping and will continue to help. Becoming self-aware of the issues that I have, the body image issues. And I'm just starting to realize these body image issues. I never realized what it was called. I could never put a name to it until, I came across some videos about body dysmorphia, and I was like, wait a second. That sounds like something I might have, And then I looked deeper into it, and I'm still researching it, and I'm like, okay, that could definitely be something that I struggle with 100%. And just realizing that, yes, weight loss and weight gain is physical. For obviously, you're either gaining weight or you're losing weight. Your body physically is either gaining weight or losing weight. That's a physical thing. But a lot of the times, it's deeper than the physical. Many, many times, most of the time, it's deeper than the physical. If you struggle with weight issues, or you have any type of weight problems or body image issues, that's a mental thing. So you have to change your mind first before you change your physical. And you can very well, it is very possible, I'll say it again, it is very possible to change your physical without changing your mind, but that change is only going to be temporary. The same way that a heroin addict can come off of heroin for a little bit, or any pill addict or anything like that can come off of their drug of choice for a little bit if they're mandated or whatever, if they feel guilty, whatever it is, right? They can come off of that drug for a little bit, but if they haven't made the change in their brain and they don't genuinely want to and don't have it in their head, like, I'm going to make this my lifestyle, I'm going to make this the rest of my life, unfortunately, a lot of the times that change doesn't stick. And it's the same thing with weight. You have to want the change for the rest of your life. You have to say it. I want this change. That when I looked at myself on that YouTube video, and I saw and I was disgusted with how I looked, I said to myself, I need to make this change for the rest of, this is it. Like, it was like a switch went off in my brain, and I was like, this is fucking it. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care about anything. I need to make this change. I can never look like that again. And I haven't looked back since, And yeah, again, I've gained a couple of pounds. And I'm trying to just move forward and push forward and realize that every day is a new day. So if I fucked up yesterday, or I felt guilty for eating the fucking spare ribs yesterday, then today I can do better. I can strive to do better for myself. You know what I mean? And make healthier choices and make better choices for myself. And that's all we can do in life with anything. I hope this wasn't all over the fucking place. It might have been, but I really hope if you're listening to this entire thing, you get something from it, especially if you're struggling with body image issues or weight issues. A, know you're not alone. B, know that it goes deeper than just, you're not just a lazy piece of shit who, refuses to XYZ. You're not just this, fat, lazy piece of shit. And sometimes you want to say that to yourself, but that's not true. A lot of the times it's a mental thing. And we have to explore that area of ourselves. We have to explore the mentality before we can even make any changes, and explore it and change it and make it a point to change it, to be nicer to ourselves. You can't treat yourself right on the outside physically if you're not treating yourself right on the inside mentally. And yeah, that's what you have to do. It's like a grass. I always said this, a blade of grass, or I used to tell my ex this all the time when it came to like, when I was trying to make a point about communication, right? It's like, you want me to make all of these changes, but the way you deliver them and the way you make me feel is like shit, you know? So how can I make positive changes in a negative environment? You can't. You just can't. It's impossible. There is no way any person can make a positive change for the better while negatively talking to themselves. It's not going to happen. You may think that that's the way to no, it's not the way to motivate yourself. No, telling yourself, hey, I can do this. I fell off the bandwagon today or whatever, but starting tomorrow, I'm just going to make it an extra point to make better choices starting tomorrow. You know, I fucked up today or whatever it is, right? I used to say this all the time. Any flower, blade of grass. You will not catch a flower or a blade of grass growing in a volatile environment, an environment that is not conducive to that growth. Sunlight, water, whatever plants or flowers need to grow, right? If they don't have them and they're in volatile environments that are not conducive to their growth, guess what? They won't grow. Same thing with you as a human being. You cannot make changes for the better while in an environment where either from the outside in, somebody's making you feel like shit or talking negatively to you, or from the inside out, you're talking negatively to yourself. It's not going to happen. Don't expect it. Don't think that you can change it. Never in the history of ever would that happen. Ever. You know, in one of my videos, I brought up Steve Jobs and how he, you know, changed the trajectory of the technology industry by creating iPhones and creating Apple. But he didn't do it by negatively talking to himself. He drowned out the negative talk. When people told him he would never amount to anything because he quit school and he didn't take the path that everybody thought he would take, and everybody on the outside was fucking jibber-jabbering about how he'd never make it, he said, fuck that noise. I'm not listening to it. I'm going to listen to the voice in my head that tells me I can do it. And you know what? He did do it. If he had a voice in his head that said, you'll never do it, they're right, he would have never continued on. He would have never had the motivation to. Because, again, I'm going to continue to say it, you cannot make any positive change in your life in a negative environment. Period. If you take nothing home from this entire podcast episode, take that with you. You can't do it. It's just not going to happen. Am I right? I'm right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Everything you say is right.
Right. Thank you. So yeah, with that being said, that's where I'm going to leave it. Start. Oh, you did? Hold on. I'm almost done. Start by speaking to yourself in a better way, and the changes that you make, the changes that you make by talking to yourself in that way are going to be mind-blowing. I can promise you that. Just start by telling yourself that you can do it and that you will do it. And I promise you, even if you have to fake it at first, I promise you, if you continue to just do that, you will make the change that you want to make. That's it. So I'm done here. The secret word for this episode is called focus. That's it. Comment focus down below in the comments. Find me on TikTok, DM me, whatever it is. That tells me that you've listened this far. yeah, I hope this helps somebody out there. I love you guys very much. I was inspired to come on and speak for a very long time. Anyway, I love you guys.